I'm Martin Byrne and I'm a retired teacher, a Christian brother and an active member of the October 17th committee. And October 17th is the United Nations Day for the eradication of poverty, and on that day a gathering meets just beyond the famine statues at the stone. And the most important thing about the gathering is that people who are struggling with acute poverty have their chance to say their truth, to tell their story, and to be listened to, particularly by the city, the Lord Mayor, and like last year, maybe ministers as well, which is a particular blessing on the day. And the poem I've written, it's about a story that happened on the 24th of June last year to mark the United Nations Day for Refugees, that a group of activists with support from ATD cycled the famine trail from Roscommon back along the Royal Canal to the famine statues. It's a trail that marks a particular journey that was made in Black 47, when literally thousands of people were forced off the land and were walked towards the North Wall, took ships from there over to Liverpool, and then were moved on to the New World, in this particular case to Canada. So that's the background to the story, and the relevance of the story would be that according to United Nations figures, there's at least 87 million recognized refugees in our world today. So it's not a historic event really. So I called the poem Cycle Against Poverty. Detenant the lands of the costly, starving, dying poor, because not even hell or Connacht can sustain them now. These poor people are the blight. Laissez-faire ideology and economics show the poor are expendable, and when they become a nuisance, get them to Liverpool and put them on boats and just send them far away. Banks, of course, are generally too big to fail, while stocks and shares and vulture funds will ever trump and triumph over the crying basic needs of the desperate. A small group of cyclists in the footsteps of the starving pedalled hard to push back and to alert all about this cruel normal, acting in solidarity with and on behalf of today's famished. For about the last 30 years, actually since the time that the flats in the North Wall were knocked, every year we try and get out a book of stories and poems from the local people, again recognising the wisdom, the value, the grit, the courage, the creativity of a community that sometimes feels it's been squeezed by gentrification and by an inverted commas development. So that's the project, yeah. When I heard you were filming on Sandymount Strand and Trinity College, I associate Sandymount Strand with that James Joyce story of his epiphany, where his eyes were opened. And a book like this, I think for lots of people, might open their eyes both to the struggles and the bravery of people, but also to their hope and to what sustains them. And then when I heard there was a bit of filming here in Trinity College, I thought of Samuel Beckett and his characters in Waiting for Godot. And I'm sure more erudite people than me will try and tell you what that play is about. But I think what they're waiting for, whether it's psychological, spiritual, sociological, it's something to do with whatever human need for hope is. And when I was privileged to read these poems, because I was invited to write a sentence or two about them, what struck me was that we all need meaning in our lives. And particularly if you're struggling. And what this book does is, not alone is it an individual searching for meaning, but it's groups. Whether it was the group that come together to support each other writing on Tuesdays, whether it was the group in Sale or people with different issues, they're writing poems, trying to make meaning. And of course I was thinking of people like Viktor Frankl, who lost his family and survived himself. But saw that making meaning of itself is so human and so helpful. So when I was looking at the poems, I thought of when I did the Leaving Cert in the end of the 60s and the early 70s, there wasn't, in the English anthology of poetry, there wasn't a woman's voice in the book. As the years have gone on, there are now women's voices in Leaving Cert level, but it's only very gradually that voices from, we'll call it the edge, voices of struggle, voices of real life have been included. I'm thinking of Rita Ann Higgins or Paula Meehan. So I'm delighted. And this particular book adds to that corpus of real stories. So that's what struck me when I read them, and I'm sort of thrilled that the book has come to fruition and that those stories are there telling us of what gives support, what wisdom, what courage, what grit is there in communities that struggle.
Yeah, thank you then. Yeah. Cheers.
Right.
Does anybody else want to ask Martin any question? What is it? Unfair.